John Gillmore. BBC Radio Lancashire.
Now, my guests this evening are father and son songwriting duo Dave Senior and Dave Junior McGerty from Barrow in Furness. Welcome to both of you this evening. Lovely to see you in the studio.
Hi, John.
Nice to be here.
Dave, firstly, Dave Senior. I mean, you were part of the music scene in Barrow in Furness in the 60s. What were those days like?
They were quite heady days, really, because it was, I started playing around about the same time as the Beatles became famous. So every kid on every corner seemed to want to be in a band, and some of us actually achieved that, which was great. But no, there was a plethora of bands in Barrow at that time. All good. You could go out any night of the week and visit several pubs and there'd be a live band on. It was magic. I suppose it was a bit like the early days of Liverpool, really. Massive amount of bands and all good bands as well. Not very. Obviously, there's one or two, but most of them were really good. So it was a good night out.
Obviously, you had to be home early because your job at the time was as a postman. Wasn't
Indeed,
it?
Yeah, but I was never home early.
No,
I just used to be very tired.
Right. Did you have a big round in Barrow? Where did you post the letters then?
Well, mainly Walney actually, but I started with the post office as a telegram boy. If you remember the big
My
red.
goodness, we're going back a bit here on
Bantam
the
125s. Yeah.
Was it always bad news you delivered on the?
Not always, no. But I wouldn't normally hang around unless I was asked to, because I'd rather avoid that if possible.
I think if you were a pools winner, you got a telegram, didn't you? If I'm not
yes,
mistaken.
you did. Yeah.
Did
Sorry, I thought you meant I was a pool winner.
Did you ever take any telegrams out to pools winners? I wonder.
I don't think so. Not that I know of. I can't remember much reaction at all from people, to be honest. But of course, it was a long time ago.
Indeed, it was. And then you were in a group called Chapter 5. Now, that wasn't your first band, was it?
No, my first
5?
band was the Vikings, which evolved into Chapter 5. But the Vikings, the bass guitarist was Glenn Cornick, who a lot of people will remember from the late Glenn Cornick, unfortunately, will remember from Jethro Tull. And when Glenn left to become famous, we changed the name to Chapter 5 and we bought the brass in. So that was the start of Chapter 5, really.
And we talked about, the music scene in Barrow back in the day. I think probably the big venues were the 99 Club, and I think the Public Hall as well.
The 99 and the Public Hall certainly were the biggest venues, apart from the pubs, of course. But all the big stars came to both of those venues. And the Rink. I forgot to mention the Rink was another early days with Billy Fury and the likes of the pop stars at that time. So there was 3 venues actually. But the main one was the 99 Club. I think that's what everybody remembers.
And did you get to support the big names that came to Barrow?
Yes, we did. Manfred Mann, Freddie and the Dreamers. But most of our support acts, which is a long list there, John, was at Nelson Imperial Ballroom.
Well, I mean, that's
a fantastic,
famous venue, isn't
it? Fantastic place.
I mean, the list is endless here. Ike and Tina Turner.
Yeah.
Hollies, Barry Ryan,
Paul and Barry Ryan,
and Barry Ryan, Billy J. Kramer, the Trogs. I mean, did you get to meet these people
yes,
as well?
We shared a dressing room with them. Yeah,
right.
I remember being on with the Hollies one night, and we were sharing a dressing room, and they were great lads, local lads. So a couple of them were, and I happened to say to one of them, "Where are you at tomorrow night?" Then Alan Clark, and he said, "We're at the Palladium. Where are you at?" And my reply was Greenwood Institute, which was a little tin hut out in the wild. So that was quite funny.
Yeah. Bobby Elliott, of course, still lives in East Lancashire.
Yeah,
still.
Yeah. I believe a couple of them, the Lancashire lads, used to come to watch us when they were working. They would come to Nelson Imperial because we played there an awful lot.
I mean, did you get that camaraderie from other bands?
Indeed, yeah. It was all. I mean, no matter how big they were, they all seemed to be Herman's Hermits and people like that. It was just another band, and we were all fresh-faced kids, and it was good, really good.
What about transport at that time? I mean, did you have a roadie, or did you do it all yourselves?
No, we had a roadie, and I know that for a fact that he's a good friend of yours, Les Trusser.
Les was, he used to drive your van around.
He did.
Did he?
In the very early days he did, before he became famous as a
motorcyclist.
As a motorcyclist,
TT.
yeah. He had a horrendous klaxon, which is totally illegal, I imagine,
Well, yeah.
certainly now. And it was just like a sub-diving, which he used to scare the pants off people as we drove down the street. But we certainly got noticed.
Excellent. Presumably, I mean, you toured all over the country, and you know, you even went abroad, I think.
We did. We did a month's tour of Germany, which was quite an experience. We played a lot of the American bases while we were there, but it was a different gig every night. But it certainly gave us a lot of experience. So we came back and we could do a 3 hours spot, no problem, without stopping, because we used to have to play 7-8 hours a night when we were in Germany. Unbelievable.
I think that Van Morrison came calling for you, didn't he, at one stage?
Yeah, we did a gig at Bank Hall Miners at Burnley, which I believe is now closed.
Yeah, I think it shut about 93.
Did it? Yeah. That was a great place. And them were, I think they just had a number one with "Baby Please Don't Go," if my memory serves me right. And they were in the crowd, in the audience that night, and they needed an organist to tour America for some reason. I don't know why, what happened to the normal organist. But they asked me, and I turned them down because we just released our own single, "You Can't Mean It," on CBS. So, and I was recently married, of course, which wouldn't have gone down very well with me or my wife.
Had you given up the job as the postman by then?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So what was it like to be a full-time musician and in a band?
Oh, it's great. I mean, it was hard work. It's not as glamorous as it sounds. It was just travelling a lot, of course, and a very small Ford Transit van we had. But yeah, it was quite hard work. But I mean, I'm glad I went through it. Well, I certainly wouldn't like to do it now.
And of course, "You Can't Mean It" was released in the 60s, and then a couple of years later, a well-known northern soul presenter, Richard Serling, got hold of it, didn't he?
Yeah, we released that in '66. It was a B-side, actually, originally. And Richard discovered it, I think in a junk shop or something like that. Started to play it at Wigan Casino, and it really took off.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
And the rest is history.
Still being played today as well.
Still being played today, still being re-released and on compilation albums. It's amazing, really.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's have a listen to it. Still a classic to this day, Chapter 5, and "You Can't Mean It." You actually composed and written that yourself, didn't you?
Indeed, yes. Yeah.
Was that the first song you'd...
I actually wrote it when I was 14, long before I was in a band or Chapter 5 or anything. But when the CBS were looking for some of our material, we recorded that and a couple of others by other members of the band, but they really liked that, so that ended up being the B-side.
Well, and still, you know, filling the floors even today.
Yes.
Did you think at that time that
No. I mean, there was no such thing as Northern Soul when it was written. It was just my attempt at hopefully a good pop song. So no, I certainly didn't think it'd last more than 12 months. Never mind. God, it's 50 odd years. It's coming up 60 years. Amazing.
Let's bring Dave Jr. in here. I mean, was it always a given, do you think, Dave, that you'd take up songwriting following your dad's footsteps?
I think it was inevitable, yeah. Growing up as a kid, we were always around it, you know. We'd help Dad move his gear into the clubs, and there was always music on at home and Beatles records and stuff, which I discovered very early on and played to death, you know. So, yeah.
And you yourself played in a band. In fact, you moved away...
I did.
From Barrow, didn't you, too?
Yeah. I was in a band with a couple of friends in the 80s, like Dad, the Barrow music scene, you know, which was really vibrant again in the 80s. And got a taste for it. We were out doing covers at the time and a little bit of our own material as well. And we decided after a couple of years that we quite fancied having a go at making it, as they used to say, you know. Yeah. And it was pre-internet days, so you couldn't fire a song off to a record company. You had to go and see them, or they would come and see you. And of course, living in Barrow, hundreds of miles from the music scene in London, it was never going to happen. So we decided to move a bit closer. And early 90s, moved to Northampton and set up a band down there with a couple of friends from Barrow. We all moved down together and, tried to have a crack at it. And we had a really good couple of years trying. A lot of laughs, you know. And we supported a few big names, again, like Dad did. Big Country, which were one of our heroes growing up. We used to do their songs in our set, you know, at one time. Sam Brown, famous British soul singer, and the Cranberries, which was good.
Well, I mean, that's you then decided, obviously, to move back.
Eventually,
to
yeah. Had a good couple of years with the band, as I say. We didn't make it, but we had a lot of laughs trying. But life steps in, doesn't it? You get married, you have children, and so it went. And then decided a few years to move back and start songwriting with Dad. So just as a hobby, really. But then all of a sudden, it started to take off, and we got a few of our songs away.
Well, it's a real family business, this, because Dave, your daughter, Dave's sister, involved in writing as well.
Yeah, she does. She writes quite a few songs with us. I think you're going to play one. I don't know if it's next or not, John, but it's "You Walk Beside Me" by Chloe Foster and was co-written by Tanya and David. Yeah. So there's three of us involved in that one.
Right. We've got that a little bit later, but the one I've got now is Fortissimo. Tell me about that, Dave, if you would, yeah.
Well, Fortissimo are a fantastic electric string quartet from Greece, and we started working with them late 2016, I think. We'd recorded a couple of demos in our home studio in Barrow and spotted them on the internet and thought, well, let's see if... we got a bit cheeky and thought, let's send them a couple of songs, you know. And they loved them, didn't they? So from then on, we started writing towards their first album, and we wrote 5 songs for them, which appear on that first album. And they play all over the world. I mean, they've taken our music to Rome, India, all over the place, you know. But they're very well known in Greece.
And this is Marrakech, I think this is,
yes.
Isn't it? Tell me about this song.
This is one of our favourites by Fortissimo, really. It's a good sort of classical rock crossover song.
Well, let's have a listen to it. Fortissimo and Marrakech. And Dave Jr., just remind us about Fortissimo and how you come to write that for them.
Well, we'd already been writing in this style for a year or two. We actually had our first release in 2012 with a South African act called Sterling EQ, and that was for EMI Records. So we already had a bit of a track record with classical crossover, and we'd amassed 4 or 5 songs before we approached Fortissimo. Sent them the tracks, and we got a resounding we love them. And off they went into the studio and recorded, as I say, about 5 tracks for their current album Adore, which is out now everywhere.
Although we had a few lined up for them, we actually wrote Marrakesh specifically for them.
Yeah,
so
we wanted to give them something rocky with a classical twist. So, yeah.
Is it easier, Dave, to get artists these days to listen to your material that you're writing rather than back in the day, maybe 30, 40 years ago?
As David said, you used to have to actually physically take it to somebody's office, knock on the door and hope they let you in. The magic of the internet is if you spot somebody, and we do it quite cheekily really, we send them an email, but we also send the song attached as an MP3. So it's no real big deal for them to listen to it, you know what I mean? It's not, they don't have to, if you ask for permission, you probably won't hear from them, but if you send it to them, the chances are that they will play it. And that's paid off for us quite a number of times, hasn't it?
Yeah, everything we've achieved so far, we've done it ourselves.
On the internet.
Just via the internet.
So, yes, it is much easier to answer your question.
Well, and the girls, Fortissimo, 4 young ladies there, they're also members of, let's see if I get this right, the orchestra is the Thessaloniki Players, is that right?
Yeah.
And you always wanted to write a sort of a waltz type song, didn't you?
Yes, we've always liked classical, and we love Strauss waltzes. So we decided that we would send it. It's Thessaloniki State Symphony Orchestra is actually. So we decided through the girls that they would send them our effort, a demo of it, and they loved it and recorded it, and it's out now.
Wow! And this is by the State Orchestra, you say, yeah?
This members of the State Orchestra.
Right,
that's why they're called the Thessaloniki Players rather than the full orchestra. It's like,
but they're principal players from the orchestra.
Yeah,
itself.
Let's have a listen to this. Oh, you can very Strauss this, isn't it?
Yes.
The Thessaloniki Players and the Britannia Waltz, composed by the McGertys, who are with me this evening on the programme. Of course, one songwriter missing, that's your daughter,
Yes.
Tanya. You all get together, sort of a family
do.
gathering when you've got to compose something.
Yeah.
We do at the home studio. Yeah.
Depending on who's available.
Yeah.
Not
I mean,
always all available. Yep.
how do you come up with what you've got to do then? What's the process? What's the process, Dave?
It happens in a couple of ways, really. Firstly, we may decide to write in a certain style. Like the waltz, we hadn't attempted that before, so we decided, yeah, let's write a waltz. And then the ideas, somehow, I don't know where they come from, but they start to flow. Or the other way it happens is little tunes just drift into your head when you're not really concentrating, and then you think, that sounds quite interesting. Let's work on that. And so it develops from there. So, yeah, a couple of different ways, really.
I mean, can you wake up in the middle of the night with an idea?
Oh, yeah.
Quite often.
And how do you remember that then?
I've got a little app on my phone.
Yeah, you see,
I'm mumbling in the dark at 2 o'clock in the morning.
You see, at one time you think, "Oh, I'll remember that in the morning."
Yeah.
You never
You
do.
never
do you?
do.
Yeah.
You never do. I mean, I've spoken to people who maybe email themselves when they've got this half an idea.
Yeah.
Email myself, but it sounds like good to have this apps for everything these
Yeah.
days.
Well, I've gone up. I haven't got an app, but I've gone up about 4 o'clock in the morning into my loft where my studio is and put the idea down. What's to?
Yeah, waking all the house up. I get the
Well,
impression.
very quietly.
Paul McCartney got very lucky that way, didn't he, with yesterday?
Well,
Yeah,
he woke up with it.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, the music scene has obviously in Barrow, the Northwest in particular, certainly changed, hasn't it, over over the years? But
Yeah.
there are still a lot of pubs, as you say, that grassroots where
Yes.
people can go in. Open mic nights, still very popular as ever, aren't they?
There are still some good young local bands in Barrow, so it's still thriving, really.
Yeah.
Not quite the same, obviously, because the music scene as a whole has changed, hasn't it? But it's still a good place for listening to music.
I think the bands are there. It's just some of the venues. There's not quite as many venues these days, but the spirit and the passion's still there in the town for sure.
Now, I know you wrote a song for 60s legend Dave Berry. In fact, I had Dave on a couple of weeks ago to chat to him about this. He enjoyed recording this. I think you recorded it in Egremont, didn't you, at the
We did back in
there?
November last year. Yeah, at the Music Farm Studios.
Is this an idea that you had then, Dave?
Well, Dave did a test pressing for Decade of one of the sides of the song, Yesterday Sunshine, which it's not. They're both double A sides, so we don't. And he did the test pressing in 68 or 69, I think, but it wasn't released at that time. But he'd always loved the song, and as we decided we would write a single for him, a new song. So we wrote the one that got away, and Dave agreed that, great idea, we'll re-record Yesterday Sunshine and we'll do the new one. So that was Double Bubble. It was nice.
Yeah, well, let's have a listen to the one that got away.
I don't ever mean to hurt you, baby. I'll never take for granted all that we've got. But there's one thing you gotta know. I've given my heart and my soul to a love that just couldn't say. The one that got away. So if I ever seem a little distant, forgive me, I would never stray that way. But these feelings, they never go. Once you've given your heart and your soul to a love that just couldn't stay. The one that got away.
The one that got away from Dave Berry. I think you've quite a success in specialist charts with that, haven't you?
Indeed, yeah, on playlist, like radio playlist, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what does that feel like when you see that?
It's wonderful because Dave Berry's had number ones, but never in the UK before. So
he must be pleased as well with that.
He is. He's absolutely delighted.
And I know I chatted to him a while ago about that and the songs, about him and his career. And I know he particularly enjoyed recording that in the studio in Egremont. He had a great day out, I think, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, there was
Lovely
lots of stories told, and it was great to hear them.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was a thrill to be working with and being in the studio with one of the, the few remaining icons from that era.
Yeah,
it was a
fabulous.
great thrill, really. Yeah, really enjoyable day.
Brings us on to our last track. You mentioned the young lady earlier from Scotland.
Yes.
Chloe, this is a lovely track, this, isn't it? I've got to say.
You like this one,
Yeah.
do you? Yeah. This is co-written by I keep saying our daughter, my daughter, and David's sister, Tanya. So once again, we wanted to write something like Karen Carpenter, and then we decided we would look for somebody on the internet. We found Chloe, sent it to her, and she loved it, and it's a new single. It's out now.
And I think people will say, wow, that sounds like Karen Carpenter, won't they, when they hear this?
Yes, hopefully. That was the idea.
Have a listen, see what you think. This is Chloe.
You walk beside me, even though you're not there. I know you still see me, and I know you still care. Although our paths won't cross again, I'll see you on the other side, my friend. I'll always love you, always love you. Feel you beside me, and your smiles everywhere. Just because I can see you doesn't mean you're not there. If we could have our time again, I'll tell you all the things I should have then. I'll always love you, always love you. I know you'll be waiting with arms open wide, and I will run to you to dry the tears I've cried. I know I will find you, no matter the crowd, and I can say these words of love I feel out loud. You walk beside me, even though you're not there. I know you still see me, and I know you still care. If we could have our time again, I'll tell you all the things I should have been. I'll always love you, but you always knew I'd always love you, always love you.
Chloe Foster from Scotland, and You Walk Beside Me. I think, Dave, people tuning in and listening to that, I said, wow, that's Karen Carpenter, won't they?
Yeah, it's quite remarkable, really. She's just come back from an American tour where she's been performing as a Karen Carpenter tribute act, and it really gets the hairs on the back of your neck standing up. You know, she's incredible. And I think, Dave, when she was out there, full orchestra behind her.
Yes, she did, which is quite often, of course, when they're doing local gigs in Britain, it's a backing track, although she does go out with a group as well. But yeah, it must have been a nice experience for her.
Well, lovely to chat to you both tonight. What's the future hold then? What are you looking forward to?
Well, we'll carry on as we normally do, John. We'll tour the internet. We'll come up with something for somebody that we think.
I think Mexico's the next venue, is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we're actually on with writing a couple of songs. Well, hopefully more than a couple, for a band called the Tempest Quartet, and they've got 253,000 followers on Facebook, which is some. Yeah. So they may not be known to the general public, but they're absolutely massive in Central America and South America and stuff. That
sometimes happens, doesn't it? People have a huge following on social media and might not be known much outside of that circle that they've got.
Yeah, and of course it's a string quartet circle as well, isn't it? Which is, I suppose, on the outskirts of the all normal pop, isn't it? It's on the outside of normal pop, but they're absolutely fantastic. They're a really, really rocky band. That's what attracted us to them.
Well, lovely to chat to you both. Thank you very much for visiting us this evening. Lovely to have your company tonight. That is father and son songwriting duo Dave Senior and Dave Junior McGerty from Barrow-in-Furness with me this evening, and one or two of their songs that we played for you tonight. It is BBC Radio Cumbria, BBC Radio Lancashire and BBC Radio Merseyside at 11 minutes to 11 with Donna Summer.